The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on Nolio and its enterprise-grade features. I'm Pamela Deason, Head of DevOps Product Marketing here at Broadcom. The webinar today is going to be led by Asaf Shlomi, and we will actually have two parts. So we'll have a presentation followed by a demo. During that time, you can enter questions, but you will be muted. So you will not be able to ask questions directly during the presentation and demo. But at the end, you will be unmuted. And should you choose and rather ask your questions directly, you can do that. So now I am actually going to just turn it over to Asaf. Thank you, Asaf.
Thank you, Pamela, for the introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Asaf Shlomi, and I'm the product manager for Nolio release automation. You may know this product. It's a Nolio product. It's quite, I would say, well established in the market, and for many years we are doing the release deployment. And today I would like to focus about how Nolio helps in the enterprise grade and to bring your releases to deployment up in one scale and even more than one scale, and how do we show it. So a bit of a background on the continuous delivery and all the deployment tools and why we are doing all of this. So the goals are quite familiar. What we want to do. We want to deliver fast. So this is important in today's times. We want to reduce the human errors. So when we're talking about errors, it's if you're doing manual deployments and all time things happens and we need to avoid it. And in my experience for many years in the world of DevOps, even as a developers, always the production failures caused by human error that they created, and always to fix it, we added another automations. But there's other things that we want to do is to provide visibility that not only the engineer that run the deployment can show the status of the deployment in my release, and how can everyone together view it and contribute to the solution and be aware of time that things happened, so we can keep improving our processes. And if you look at the over time scales, and if you look at the old time where at the beginning when everything was become a manual, and slowly we're going up to the scales and become more agile. As more we are agile, we need to deliver faster in smaller portions to learn and to have a better repeat cycle and to learn how to do it again and again and again, and to avoid all type of error that happens the way. So if at the beginning, and I believe that no one is residing here in the manual place that we have in CDD now, and then the scripting came to, and scripting as well. It's something that is error prone that you need to maintain. The automation goes up, and this is where we put the release automation until from automated to continuous. So make my pipeline flow from environment to environment until production, from build to production, and how can I optimize my processes. And I focused here on three aspects of the continuous delivery journey. So the automation, the continuous, and the optimization. And especially on the automation, we can see that there is a focus on making reusable components when I'm doing my deployment. So I would like that my deployment will be repeatable, and I would like that once I'm doing something, I don't need to duplicate it in every environment because it's working well in one environment. I would like to use it in different environments on a different application, all my application. And if I need to fix it, I would like to fix it once and not to start to fix it in all places. So if I have a process that deploys something, I would like to fix it once. And this is something that I believe, and from my experience, again, customers keep asking. So how can I do it once and it will apply for all? And in Nolio, we have something very, very important, and I think that answer is called shared component. But first, I would like to understand what is a component. So a component in Nolio, it's the it can be an action or flow, but mainly we will look about the flow that doing a set of actions that eventually deploy in my application. But a component, it can be like a subset of the entire deployment. I can break it to a subset, and then I can reuse this component. So if I'm creating a component, for example, that knows to go in and deploy a file in specific servers, if I've been and then I would like to validate and to do some check and balances, or any component that I did, I would like to repeat and to use this component in many other applications and to use it in many other environments. So this is a component, and then comes the shared components, where I'm creating a single component and reuse it in different applications. And I'm designing it once, I'm fixing it once, I'm enhancing it once, and I don't need to repeat it more and more. So if I look at about an example here, if I have, like I said, I need a Tomcat deployment. I have create a component that knows to do some kind of a deployment on a Tomcat server. I have many applications that use the Tomcat servers. I don't want each group and every application will have its own way to deploy on the Tomcat. I want to have it one way, and if indeed something goes wrong, or I know that I can enhance it, I would like to do it only once. So I will create a shared component that knows to take and to do some kind of a deployment on the Tomcat, and then I use it in my release deployment. Of course, in my release deployment, I would have other steps that I will have to do, not just copy into the Tomcat, validation, approvals, whatever, but I can isolate it and I can repeat on this. One of the things that we encountered, and if you know Nolio, that once I have many shared components or shared component that used across many applications, and in the applications, in every application it used across many processes. Once I apply a change in the shared component, it's very similar to a change in the Git. So we have you can branch a change, you can commit it, and then you can set as which version of the component you want to use in your application. But then you need to go to your application and apply the change, and then you need to go to the process and republish the process. And if you have many applications and many processes, this is something that caused quite a lot of effort. And here, what we're going to introduce in Nolio 6.9 is the way and the capability to do it from a central location and to do it like in a bulk change. So Sergey, my colleague, one of the Nolio's engineer, will demo how it works right after I'll finish my short talking, I promise. The second feature that we would like also to take this opportunity and to share with you, it's what we call low code management. Basically, low code management is to manage my pipeline or to administrate my pipeline and application as a code. So as well, it's come of ease of use. We use the term low code, although it's not a low code, it's a code based, so it's the other way of low code. I promise to fix this naming. But this is a powerful tool that a lot of DevOps engineers came and asked, because it says, okay, now I need to apply change in many locations in Nolio settings. I need to go to the UI and make a lot of clicks. I don't like it. Let me have the option to script it and to build my automation to apply those changes in Nolio. And this is exactly what we introduced in 6.8, and we're going to enhance it in 6.9 as well. And now what Sergey will show you, it's how we can modify the application with a groovy code that apply changes and multiple changes to the code. So Basically, the demo would be from two parts. One, the phase will be bulk changes to shared component, and the next one will be for load code management. And now I'll pass the presentation to Sergey, and let Sergey to present to you what we have. Sergey, I'm passing it to you.
Thank you, Asaf. Let me share my screen. No, that was not correct. All right. So, hello, my name is Sergey Kulyastov, and I'm software engineer in Nolio release automation team. I have been working with Nolio release automation since 2018. Today we'll show a short live demo to highlight improvements for two features we are going to release with the Nolio 6.9. First one, as described by Asaf, is about new API and new UI elements for switching multiple applications to a shared component revision. And second will be about using Nolio as code script to automate local process updates. These are improvements on existing features in Nolio, so it's supposed to be targeting people who are somewhat familiar with Nolio, but I will describe and show every element of this demo environment that I prepared for this. Let's start. We see now Nolio login page. I will log in as account that I prepared that is supposed to be managing a couple of or several applications in Nolio. Specifically, I'll go to application overview page, and this account manages these three applications that I'm showing in this dropdown: Web App EDM, Web App FastTQ, and something else. And this account, as usually it is set up, knows only about their applications, manages and cares about only their applications. The thing about applications and shared components that Asaf was talking about is that these are separate entities in Nolio, and they can be managed by different separate teams. But shared components, they are supposed to provide useful logic that can be shared between multiple applications. And I will show how this is the case for this environment. For that, I will switch to design, process design page, and here on the left, we can see components tab. The components tab shows which shared components are linked or assigned to this particular application currently selected. To name them, it's Oracle Express 1.5, Tomcat Express 2.3, MS SQL 1.5, MySQL Express 2.3. And there is one local component that has elements that are unique and make sense only for this application. So what do the shared components provide are a bunch of useful flows and actions that can be exploited by these applications, by this application in order to stop the pipeline that makes sense for it. For example, this application here called, not application, this flow in Oracle Express shared component here that is called deploy does a piece of logic that just looks into some working directory setup through parameter, list all the files with SQL extension in this directory, goes through them and runs these files against predefined Oracle database available through credentials and URL that is also set up through parameters provided by shared component. If I switch to process tab now, I will see a bunch of processes created for different database setup. For example, this first one for MS SQL combines couple of flows from shared component to set up piece of pipeline that will be used to create database schema by running a bunch of SQL files on MS SQL database. This process will run on servers that are marked for as DB server, database server. And there is another process that will be run on agents that are marked as web app hosts that uses flows from Tomcat shared component that will deploy application, and the application will communicate with database that is set up by another process. So then the next step of automating would be to create a deployment, and deployment will combine these processes that I've just showed and into a complete pipeline. For example, this one is a simple one. It runs a process that checks connectivity with the database. Then it creates database schema using the first process that I showed, and it deploys web application that uses a process from Tomcat shared component elements that I also showed. So that's a setup for applications team. And let's now switch to shared component account. I will use incognito mode just to be able to be logged in at the same time from different accounts. So now, as a shared component designer, I will go to shared components page, and that's a different perspective because that's supposed to be an account managing the shared components we saw earlier, plus that are used in those applications, plus all shared components available in this application. The list of all shared components available in this Nolio instance is on the left pane here. It's these 6 shared components here. If I click, for example, MS SQL Express shared component, in the middle we see something called shared component revisions. Shared component revisions are snapshots of this particular shared component created at some point in time, and these revisions, they are static. They are committed, and that means that they are available to be used by applications. After they are committed, they cannot be modified. It's somewhat similar maybe to version control system. Committing the shared component revision guarantees that it's not going to suddenly change, and it will not break any applications that already are using it. And there is also uncommitted revision, which is currently marked as working revision, meaning that's the one in focus. And if I open it, I can see flows and actions available. And this revision is not yet ready to be used by applications because it's not committed. We can also check, for example, which applications use which shared component. If I click here, I can see that MS SQL of version 1.5 is used by this bunch of applications. It includes the 3 applications we saw earlier available from that web applications account and some extra ones that are managed by a different account. So that's a setup that I'll be working with. Now, for the purpose of this demo, I'll actually, I want to change a shared component. And in order to change it, I will first simulate password change in the database. So I have 2 Docker containers here with one with MS SQL database running and another with MySQL database running. And what I will do, I will just change the password to something different. And restart the containers. So I changed it for MS SQL. Now I'll change it for MySQL as well. After container is up again, the new password will be used there. What it means for Nolio instance that I showed earlier is that that these flows and processes in applications I showed earlier, they become outdated because the password has been changed. It's not a problem normally because the passwords are often managed through parameters of shared components that have environment type, and they can be modified in runtime. But for purpose of this demo, these passwords are constant. They have constant values, and the value of this password is now outdated, meaning that I need to update it as a shared component manager account. So in order to do that, I will just update the value here for this for MS SQL as I changed it for MS SQL, and we'll do the same for MySQL password. And now I need to commit these revisions, as I mentioned before, in order to make it available for applications. So that's it. And now we have shared component revisions that incorporate the change that was done on the backend, on database level, let's say. However, the problem is that these changes, we don't know from Nolio side whether we need to push these changes to all applications that use this shared component or not, whether they will break the existing flow, existing deployments. So they are not pushed by default. And in fact, before 6.9, there was no easy way to push these changes. Even though the new parameter contains new password, if I switch back to application account and, for example, try to restart this deployment that was green, I expect it will now fail on connectivity check because the password is outdated. So that's what happens. It's failed on database connectivity check. So previously, what had to be done in order to fix this, every application owner that use a specific shared component, they would have to go to their application in Nolio and switch shared component revision that is used from the old one. We saw one of those revisions used there to new one. And even that wouldn't be enough because the processes are then used in deployments. So in order to apply changes to deployments, it would be necessary to republish the processes. And that can be painful in case there are multiple applications and multiple processes in them, because it will require a lot of human effort. In 6.9, we add ability to push changes from shared component revision to all applications that use them. Not necessarily all, but we just add ability to push these changes to all or some applications. For that, on target shared component, there is a new option which is called switch revision bulk applications. If I click it, there is a pop-up listing all applications that use this particular shared component. and that are available, that are visible to this account that I'm currently logged in on. I can filter the ones that we want to update, for example, these web applications. And there is a checkbox that I can mark if I want to also republish all the processes in these applications or after switch and revision. So if I choose it, I press switch. There's another pop-up showing progress for switching and for republishing. So the first element is application name. This list is a list of processes in those applications. We can see it's switching, and once it's finished, the application is fixed, basically. I will repeat the same process for the second shared component that that was changed. Only this time I will unselect this one application because I want to show how we also slightly improved functionality for switching individual applications. So first of all, I will start this process. It's taking time. By the way, it's sometimes if there is a big list of applications and each application has multiple processes, it can take time, but it's okay to close this pop-up and continue doing something else. In Nolio, we can also always return to status and check what if it went wrong or right. And by the way, it's also not a final look. We already improved it, but just this demo build does not contain the updates. Updates will include history of switches. That there will be a different tab to show previous switches that were run. Anyway, now when I switched forcefully those applications to new shared component revision, I can log in back to application management account. And now if I will run the deployment, this time it should succeed because password is now updated. Yeah, we can see it's green. So that's about it for the first part of my demo. And no, actually it's not, sorry. Last thing that I wanted to show is that I skipped that one application from bulk switch operation because I wanted to show how it can be switched individually. If I go to that application and on process designer page in the list of shared components, we always had this option to switch revision of the shared component. Yeah, I need to switch MySQL shared component. So we still have it, but now we also have the checkbox to republish all processes, because if application has multiple processes that use this shared component or any elements from them from this shared component, each of these processes have to be republished manually, and this checkbox will save some time. That's now an option to automatically republish after switching. So that's about it for the first part of my demo. For the next part, second part, will be about low-code management. So similarly to shared components, applications can have local components that I showed earlier. And these local components, they exist only for the particular application, and they usually contain some custom pieces of logic that make sense only for that application, or for this account, I would say. For example, in this application, I have this process called check database connectivity custom. It's the same process as the one that I used in deployment that uses shared components, but it uses different database name when it's checking the availability of the database. And what happens is that this process is local and it wasn't updated after shared component was updated, meaning that if password has changed for the database, these parameters will not be updated to new password. If I now decide to run this process, for example, it should fail because even though I updated the password for shared components, this is not using shared components. So it fails with the connectivity check. And for the purpose of this demo, again, I have similar processes in all of these three applications, but there could be more. And of course, it still can be painful to go through them, to update every password, because it's not just updating a process, it's looking for input, the correct input, updating it, republishing the process, and so on and so forth. So for this, I will show how it is possible to update it through LCM feature. And for LCM, it has been released with Nolio 6.8, but in 6.9 we are going to improve it. First of all, we plan to add UI editor to test LCM scripts, to be able to test LCM scripts in UI, but also we plan to improve security. And for now, for this build, the UI is not available. So I will show how to just automate updating process like that through GUI script from IDE. So for that, I have a simple dummy project, Maven project created in my IntelliJ IDE, and I will show how it can be used to communicate with Nolio and update those processes in Nolio. In order to enable this feature from IDE, in IDE, the Maven plugin has to be installed and enabled through configuration. So in this POM file, I have this plugin configured the same way as all the standard Maven plugins, such as Maven Deploy, Maven Site, and so on and so forth. So our plugin is called Nolio LCM Maven plugin, and it has different configuration, but it's not purpose of this demo to show those. And there is necessary configuration that includes Nolio user, Nolio password, and Nolio URL in order to be able to communicate with Nolio instance. But this configuration doesn't have to be in this POM file because this POM file normally will go to version control system together with the project files. It can be extracted into a separate file and can stay hidden. But just for this demo, this configuration is noted here. And what this plugin will do when I execute the main goal, it will run a script. It will actually send the script to Nolio, and the script will run there, and then it will return a result to this plugin. Script is based on Groovy syntax. I'm showing the script on the screen. By default, it's supposed to be present in resources of the project and supposed to have extension .nolio which will be automatically detected by Nolio plugin that I showed, but it's configurable. I want to go through this script one line by line and explain what it does in order to update the processes. So first of all, it declares list of 3 applications that it will update. It doesn't have to be hard-coded here. It can be tokenized or it can be fetched during runtime, but here it's hard-coded. There is also a password that is hard-coded, which is also not necessary. But it's just 2 variables containing these values that I want to update, and so I'm showing them. Next, using Groovy syntax, we can iterate over elements in this list, meaning that it will iterate over these application names. And then we also have custom functions provided by our plugin that interact with Nolio, and that makes sense for Nolio, let's say. For example, this function application, it will load application definition by name. Application as if application in Nolio, an entity. And so going through this list, it will load each of these applications by their names. Then there is another method that allows to extract or to find a process within those applications, either by part of name or by pattern. In this case, it will look for a process by this pattern name. Then in each found process, it will extract all the actions in the process and check if action matches this kind of name, execute SQL, matches this pattern, I mean. If it does, it will look for a password input, and finally it will update input value to new password. After finishing updating all inputs that match the conditions in process, it will republish the process. So normally, basically, I would say that it describes everything that user would have to do through UI in order to update those processes. It can be written in different manner, but it's just in order to show for this demo how to automate it, I did it like that. So what I will do now, as Maven plugin goal can be, maybe our Maven plugin provide a bunch of goals. They are all described in the documentation. For now, I will need only one, the main one, which is Nolio LCM deploy. This goal will send the script to Nolio, and this script will be executed there, and the result will be returned to plugin and printed in Maven output. So I will do this now. I'll execute it. I have added some useful debugging to this script just to see what's happening or what was happening when the script was executing. And we can normally see this output here. It went to update this application, then that application. It lists the action that it found and the input that was updated. All in all, after it finished, I can expect that the process that was failing before, that showed, will now succeed, will now work. Let me check it. So yeah, because the password has been updated, it now succeeded. And that's about it for the second part of my demo. So I will give the control back to Asaf. Feel free to ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Pamela, do
Thank
we
you.
have any questions in the chat?
Let me look. I think we had a few come in actually during the presentation and demo portion. The first one, let's look at the first. It is, when will Nolio 6.9 be released?
Yeah, so the plan is to release it by the end of the year. We still finalizing the feature of having the LCM on the UI and some security and applying some security patches and making the strength. Then it will get into cycle of testings. So hopefully this is our grand plan for now. Final data still do not have.
Okay, and just let me also remind everyone, right now, you're able to unmute yourself and ask questions directly if you would like. We do still have a few other questions that came in through the chat. So we'll go through those, but feel free if you would like to unmute yourself and ask a question directly, you can. So the next one that came in, Asaf, is, can I use the LCM in Nolio 6.9?
Yeah, so SAGA advice, so it can be used also in 6.8. It already appears in our documentation. In 6.9, we're going to enhance it, and as well as to have the capability to run it from Nolio UI. We'll have an editor that can you make all the changes, and it's keep the having the needs to use the ID and the step that Sergey showed before.
Right. Hopefully that answered that. Again, just a quick reminder, feel free to comment or add additional questions as we go through the ones that came in through the chat. Okay, the next one I see here, Asaf, can any user edit the shared component and switch revisions?
Yeah, so here there are two levels of permissions that we have. So to edit a shared component, there is the current permission that allows to change the shared component. So today it's a permission that already exists. Now, once I publish or to switch revision in application and to republish processes, this is more like to application level permissions. So I can, if I'm a shared component editor, I can make a bulk switch to all the application that I'm entitled to do so. So every company with their kind of a level of permissions. So if the shared component editor, it's like a central of excellence that editing the release or managing the entire release, they can do it from a local from the central. But if it's distributed and there are the shared component editors, but they do not have permissions to modify the applications, and the application teams can need to do it, they still can benefit from this feature, because now they can go to the application, switch the revision, and do a bulk switch to all the processes, not switch, sorry, bulk republishing of all the processes from central location rather than process by process. So it's kind of a tree if you think about it. So I have to switch revision to all application, and under every application I need to republish the processes. Each one of its permission can do at the level of the trees that is allowed to do.
All right, thank you. The next one appears to be a little bit of a comment and then a couple of questions around that. The comment is, in our system, there are many processes which use the same shared component. Republishing all these processes at once may take a long time. And then the first question around that is, do I need to keep the switch revision pop-up until all of the processes will be republished?
Yeah, so indeed, this is something that we considered, that if it's going to be like an online processing, it indeed can take long time, and indeed we don't need to be, so we design it as a process that runs in the background. So it can be they have many processes need to be published. Each one of them takes time, and it can be that this republishing of all the processes will run for many minutes, and in this case it will run in the background, and then you can you don't need to keep the pop-up screen open. You can close it, and basically it's very similar to the functionality of upgrade the agents. So it's also something that runs in the background, and it can repeat to the pop-up, and to see, you can close the pop-up and then we go back and view the status of this pop-up. So this is something that go offline and do all these updates.
All right. And then the second question around that is, how will I know if all processes switched successfully?
Yeah. So I just mentioned it, and I think also Sergey showed it in his demo. What happens is that, as I said, like the agent upgrades, you can go back and then you can see exactly which process was republished and it was done successfully or failed. If it failed, then you can need to go to this specific process and see why it failed and republish it again for this specific process. But yes, you can see it.
Okay. And then there's one last question around that, and that is, can I abort the process?
So yes, of course, that application that already switched the revision, it's already done, but it won't roll back the changes, but it will abort. So if I republish and suddenly I was notified that we are not ready, so stop, I would stop. But whatever was, whatever application that already switched revision and whatever processes that were republished, it's already done. And what you can do is go back and switch back revision for the application and republish if you want to do some kind of rollback. This is a manual task. It's not like automatic rollback. If I'm boarding, it will roll back to the old revision.
Okay, I think that's all of the questions right now, except one last question that did come in through the chat. And basically, you guys, someone asked whether this is recorded. And the answer is yes, it's recorded. You will get a link, and yes, you can share that with whomever you would like to share that with. If the person that you're sharing it with hasn't already registered, they'll be prompted to register, but then yes, they can then listen to the recording. So I'm going to wait just another minute, just see if anyone else has any sort of final questions.
I had a question. This is Nanda. So let's say that there were 8 passwords to be updated, but only 7 were updated. Will the dashboard indicate that only 7 of the passwords were updated, but the 8th one was not?
So when you refer to the 8th password, you refer to a process that hasn't been republished or application that hasn't been switched. This is the question. So
yeah. So in one of the screens that Sergey showed, he said, like, we have to update passwords in multiple locations.
yeah.
So let's say that there were 8 locations or 9, 10. Let's say 10 locations, and then we missed updating the password in one location. So 9 of them passwords were updated. So is there like a dashboard or somewhere where it will say that, okay, 9 were updated successfully, but the 10th one was not?
Yes.
Or okay.
Yes, exactly what I said before. So you can see exactly. So in this case, what it means that because the shared component was done, now you switch your applications, and then you republish the processes. Okay, and it can be that some of the processes were not failed in the republishing, and then it means that indeed the password will not change, and then we can see that that this process has not been republished and failed in the republishing, and then you need to do it manually. If the application switch was failed, this is something as well that you can see that in this pop-up in the status that Sergey showed. If for some reason it failed or aborted and not switched, you can see it as well over there.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
I had one more question. This is Nanda. So this presentation is being recorded. I got that message, but like, will the PPT or will that presentation be shared also?
No, actually, typically what we do is just share the recording. You know, in it you can see the presentation, but we don't share the physical PPT.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
All right. If there is nothing else, I am going to close the webinar for today. And again, thank you all for joining.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.